This video is going to be a day late. Let's review Weekly Shonen Jump. So each week I read Weekly Shonen Jump and review the chapters that I read. I've already dropped some of the chapters, so I won't be covering them, but let's just jump right into it. Coming in last place this week is Drawn to the Fire. So this chapter just did not grab me at all. It was fine. So our gang looks like they're going to be scrimmaging with so more of the middle school kids, because there's so many middle school kids with that have been suffering from this rage baiters past at the start, and it's kind of it's kind of indicative to me that they have to keep reminding us, if they even showed up before at all, they're like, oh, here's even more of the middle school teammates, because they weren't memorable enough to begin with, so we have to keep reminding you that this is the case. And yeah, it just this chapter just didn't necessarily grab me. It was a lot of like chatting around, and then they started the game, freaked out about the fact they're doing a pick and roll, um and then we get this little new little play. They go for a 3-pointer and they get 3 points. And hey, they did this little flex at the end there, and it's like, guys, it's one score, it's 1 point. I know it's technically 3 points, but I don't know. It just didn't do it for me this week. I also thought that the coach's like speech thing wasn't that inspiring. I was just kind of like, okay. So yeah, just not a fiery sort of chapter this week from John to the Fire. Coming in at second to the last, I had a big think about this one. So congrats on the color page. I think that's indicative of how good this series has generally been. I initially put this a little bit higher, but after taking a think, I've actually moved it down a little bit. I just think that this chapter, and I think the previous one as well, just it hasn't been getting up to the level at which I'm used to this series being, where I didn't think that the comedy was really getting to me as it had been before. I guess we learned that the dog can now stand up, so he doesn't have to be like a dog anymore. They're going to make him some sort of strange human. um I think that, you know all of the stuff with the doll curse was fine. Um, Also, this character has maybe gotten some work done. I mean, I think that character design has changed pretty significantly. But I thought that it was a fine enough thing. It wasn't doing anything too crazy, kind of just allowing the characters to be who they are. And so I don't necessarily think it was a bad chapter. But I think that this series can be doing a lot more, and it has done a lot more in the past. And so I would just, I guess it's suffering from the high expectations that I have from it, and I just thought that this chapter was a little bit of a dud. Coming in next, we have Kinato's Magic. Again, this was one that I kind of found hard to parse out between like Roku's House of Oddities below it. In that we continue the fight, and we learn more about how this ability is going to be taking place, and it's literally just them dancing around, which was interesting. It was fine enough. I was like, okay, I guess this is what it is. I don't know how that would help you with actually fighting. Like, I know that there's an element to, if you're using dancing as like a vehicle for doing things, but to this, it just kind of makes them seem like there would be an easier target to hit. But clearly that wasn't the case, because the villain said that they would be, and she's just been missing like crazy. And then Kinato has been using his relaxation magic to great effect to knock off all the bad stuff. And he just pulls out the maximum output relaxation, which makes her feel like she's in a warm embrace. Got to get the our budgeted fan service, and then we end it. And apparently The whole little tournament thing that we be setting up has ended, which I kind of expected given how it was going, but it is still kind of a little disappointing that it just really didn't end up being anything at the end of the day. And I think that um, it's a bit of a reflection of where Shonen Jump is and where some of these authors are these days. That especially early on, we're not allowed to let things breathe. We're not allowed to let things develop. It's like you have to constantly be go, 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 go. And there is a place for that. There is definitely, like, I see the reasoning. I see the argument for why you would always want to have, like, oh, it's got to be constantly developing. It's got to get keep getting bigger and bigger. And I do appreciate that there is a level of hype in Shonen Jump. Like, that is just gonna be the case, and that's kind of what they're looking for. But at the same time, I do want things to be able to breathe. I want things to be able to feel like we're living in a story or letting things build over a long period of time. And I don't know, this arc that wasn't an arc kind of felt like that to me. Um, but we are in Kinetsu's Magic. We are going down the path that I want them to go down, but I just really hope that they give them time to sort of flesh out that idea and just not make them, whipsaw back and forth between him being Deku or not. I think that would be very disappointing. Coming in next, we have Underdoctor, and we have been introduced to a new character, which is at least right now, starting off as kind of like a love interest, which I kind of thought that Chiwako was, but I guess not. Although at the end, get to it. But yeah, we introduced this former patient of Haiji who is like clearly crushing on him and is also a princess, which is interesting. She tasers the sexual predator, which I very much appreciated and thought that was great. But there's a lot of hijinks that go on with her pursuing Haiji. We see how they met and how he healed her and all that thing, but he just treats her like a patient because honestly he has too much going on and he just needs to do as much as he can for as many people as possible, and that doesn't involve him being romantically involved. And it's not necessarily that he doesn't have romantic feelings. He's like, oh, it could be fun, but at the same time I need to I need to help as many people as possible. We also learned about how how messy he is and how awful he can be. But she takes his explanation and is like, all right, I'll run with it, but doesn't mean she's giving up. She'll be back. But, it's good news for Chiwako. She gets a little smile. So I thought that this chapter was fine. I like, as they continue to introduce characters. I've liked how they've been going so far, which I think for a series like this is really important. So I'm sure she'll be back in the future, but I thought it was good. You know, Even though it was kind of on the lower end, I do think it was a good chapter from Under Doctor this week. Coming in next, we have Hal Formula. So in this chapter, we are introduced to what's probably going to be a rival character. I will say that I didn't find the rival character to be super distinct from the main character. So sometimes in some of these panels, I wasn't necessarily sure who was talking. Especially when we were going back and forth between the two of them, because the main differentiator is like this weird eye thing that he has going on. But sometimes our main character looks like that when he's like really into something. So I do hope that there is a change. Maybe not a change, or at least like I hope that as this character continues to be involved in the story, which I assume he is, that he will just become more distinct and more memorable. Because he seems not like totally flat, but I'm saying a lot of bad things about this chapter. I like this chapter. We sort of get more into the racing. We see the difference between this like really raw, rough cut Diamond, which is our main character, and this like hardened, you know, been racing and is being trained and built up in a very particular kind of way, and how there's this difference between the two of them. Our main character is happy about that. He's happy about being able to push his limits and to keep growing, and he thinks that this is the way to do it. And seemingly he has found some sort of hint or clue that will help him moving forward. So Yeah, like I did think, even with all the, character design things notwithstanding, I did think it was a good chapter this week, and hence the rating that it got. Honestly, like, if I enjoy the chapter, that's really all what this is all about. Coming in next, rounding out the non top 10 chapters, we have Animal Signal. So this chapter I enjoyed again. This was another example of kind of like subverting expectations in a really interesting way. So they introduce a rabbit character who has a rabbit anima that's particularly strong. And it is causing some level of tumult within our heroine here, because Subasa is seemingly like he's on a date with this rabbit, and the rabbit is also getting super clingy, and so she gets like really self-conscious. But it turns out, all of our minds are in the gutter, and what is going on is not actually what we are thinking a rabbit's instinct is. No, instead, the rabbit instinct is just to be super defensive and territorial, and so she's just punching the crap out of Subasa. Which thankfully, since she is a rabbit, her arms are not actually that strong. It's her legs that are super strong. But it still causes him to need to think about really cute things, which was really funny. But then Kokone kind of gets onto the page of what's going on, and is going to help out when they see a purse snatcher, and she just jumps literally into action, in a really funny way. We see how powerful and fast she is in all these face shots with the main characters, which were great. And then she just kicks the crap out of the cheetah, which was great. And Yeah, it was just a really fun chapter, subverted expectations, and funny, and cute, and that's all you can ask for, and that's all that I asked for this series. And so, I enjoyed it. I think that 11 is maybe a little bit too low for it, honestly, given how much I enjoyed it. But I do think that the chapters that went in the top 10 this week were quite good. Starting off that top 10 list, we have Sakamoto Days at number 10. So this chapter was a lot of getting back into that just classic Sakamoto Days action, really hyping up the fact that Sakamoto is going to die in this one. Um, and there is this, lots of fun with a roller coaster, which I kind of expected, but it was still really fun to see. But Sakamoto is like really struggling, and Gaku jumps in because, of course, Gaku has to show back up again, and he starts jumping in on the fight, and then it's now a three-way fight. Still using the all of the amusement park rides and stuff, but the action has been fairly good so far. But then all of a sudden, who shows up? Takamura. And everybody I know, including me, was like, hold on. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's one thing to bring Gaku back. It's one thing to have Sakamoto die but not die. But like, really? This guy? And then whoops, it's Nagumo the whole time. Yeah, that was a bit of like a switcheroo on all of us, but it could only work because this sort of thing has happened in the past when characters that were definitely dead are not dead anymore. So they are a victim of their own, I don't even want to say success, of their own tropes, of their own things that they typically would do in their series. Um but Nagumo, even with it being Nagumo, like Nagumo is also in like complete medical, like he's a complete medical disaster. Like that's the thing with all these characters. Like Gaku should probably be dead. Sakamoto should probably be dead. Nagumo has like mortal wounds, and yet all these guys are fighting Slur, who until this point has basically like I don't remember if he had like a significant injury. Like maybe it's been too long since the fight initially happened, but he kind of is coming across as like super weak if he's like these three dudes that are on their deathbed are more than holding their own against him. But interesting stuff. Coming in at number 9, we have Someone Hurts, and Mizuo's hungry. Uh, that's basically the whole chapter. Is Mizuo's hungry, and they go off to get some food. They do the Big Bang Burger Challenge for all you Persona fans out there, and Mizuo and Mime end up winning. They end up, not having to pay for their food. He also hands off the radio to his rival, which is, this character that's like, I don't care about Monmid, but he actually kind of does a little bit. He doesn't really just want to admit it though. And so, Mime's just out here helping out his fellow listeners and making sure they don't have a lag and making sure we are all on a level playing field. And yeah, it was cute. It was just another cute classic Someone Hurts chapter. I really liked it. I love when these goofballs are having fun, and that was just what this chapter was all about this week. Coming in next, we have Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, number 8. And guys, I'm really back to enjoying this series. I know there was a period of time where I was not as much of an enjoyer of what was going on, but I am well and truly back on the bandwagon here. So, um, Utsugi is finishing up their fight and is basically like, oh, Kiyoshi, I totally agree with you because you are saying that because you are a cross paladin, you can just stand by your convictions as long as you're strong enough to defend them. And he's like, yep, that's totally right, and you are definitely strong enough to do that. Also, he's super short, which which is surprising, or at least I didn't. I mean, I don't remember how tall Kiyoshi is, but I think it's funny that he's like more than a head shorter than him. That's very interesting. Maybe Kyoshi's just tall, and I just completely forgot, or just didn't matter up to this point. But yeah, I thought that this was fun. I thought this was interesting, sort of. Representation of these people's points of view and how they come across what they think. There was a lot of hype that was brought into things. And yeah, we get to the Holy Spring relic, where Kyoshi is supposedly supposed to get the relic that he's supposed to get as his little bonus. Like, hey, look, super power up for you, even though you're super powerful, and we're acknowledging that. Jumps into the bath, nothing happens, and then the chairman's like, I was afraid about this. You got to go to grandma's house to go pick it up. And so we're going to get some scary grandma coming the next chapter, which is always going to be fun. But yeah, no, I mean, fun chapter, and fun on the way too. So it was just another good one from Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi. I've been happy with it the past few chapters for sure. Oh boy, guys! Coming in next, we got a blue box and second to last blue box. And I got to admit that I think this one could have been a lot higher, but they were just not focusing on the people that I thought that they would focus on. So quite a lot of this chapter is centered on Hina and Yusa, the Yusa brothers, honestly. Basically the majority of it is, Yusa talking about how he interacts with badminton, how that has made it so he hasn't really had an interest in romance because, badminton just comes first in his mind, but then he shows up to this interview and Hina is there also being interviewed because she won her thing, her rhythmic gymnastics competition. and she ends up unintentionally saying something that Yusa actually believes, which is, a telltale indicator in a rom com, especially a sports related rom com. It's like, oh, you share my ninja way. That means you must be my romance interest. And so he takes an interest in her, which is not a good sign for the littler Yusa brother, which he and his friend is totally clocking. We get a little bit of like a scrapbook time skip where we see all these photos and such, and then yeah, we're all the way up to graduation, and next chapter is definitely the last chapter. I could tell that this was going to be the case like a mile away. I'm wishing that we get a little bit of Kyo and Ayame um, before we wrap it up. I'd be sad if they don't get a decent amount of screen time, because we basically have had no screen time with them actually being together. Their actual relationship has basically happened entirely off page, which is you know not the best, but I know that they wanted to. I know that the end of the series was always going to be this, and we don't need to drag anything out too much longer. I mean, when the series has made it to its natural conclusion point, I'm fine with have that being the concluding point. But it's just, if I'm really really honest, I just want a bit more Kyo and Ayame in my life, and the fact that I'm not getting that, and it's all it's guaranteed I'm not getting it at this point. That's just a little frustrating. But I will give this series the toast that it deserves after the next chapter, because it definitely deserves it. This has been a wonderful series. It had its one big hiccup, and I give every series one big hiccup, and you can still be a great series unless it's the very end. But that's not the case with this one. I think it's just been a very good read from start to finish. Coming in next to Witch Watch, we have our Khan and Bon are out here, and they're fighting the big doll up on the top of the yacht. We have a nice little Anya hair face here. But basically, this is Kanshi's big moment to shine. This is him finally getting to show off his capabilities, what he's learned, and strategy as well. Our warlock here, our doll warlock, is just, she's really struggling. She was getting put on the ropes. If it had lasted any longer, things would have been bad. She gets a flare up of her fire PTSD, and boom, there you go. There you go. Look at that. Oh, look at our boy. He's doing all the things. And guess what? He doesn't have to go in for the kill. He knows he doesn't need that. He even if he had the ability to do it, which he says he doesn't, but I think he probably could have if he wanted to. He wants to work with this warlock, and wants her to change her ways and to be better, and to wait on the fact that Nico could probably heal her whenever she gets the time to learn it, and she should take that time to let her heart heal, which is just a fantastic message. And this was a great little conclusion to the fight. It's been awesome seeing all of our squad in each of their individual matches and their each individual fights, and how each of them have gone about concluding their fight, and what how they've been able to show off how they've grown throughout the series, which is crazy to say for a gag manga, but it's the truth, and it's just been a very very pleasant read. um I don't know if we're in the final arc for Witch Watch. I think we might be, um which is kind of crazy considering that all these other series have been ending recently. But even if that is the case, I think that this has been a very enjoyable read as well. So let's see how this arc continues. Coming in next, we have Shinobi Undercover. Um, Once again, I think this series proves that it does humor in a very fun way. It has built up these characters that are really, really exciting and really interesting, and you want to follow along with them, even if they're not Yodaka. And speaking of Yodaka, we're going to get some backstory on him because all of a sudden his master has shown up at school for reasons that we don't fully know at this point. But he is here. He is engineering situations in which our favorite female ninja is becoming more popular among among her classmates. But one of the things that I think will be a good outcome for what has been going on is that she'll be able to show off her true personality more, which I think is actually will make her more endearing to her classmates versus this like obviously fake persona that she puts on, which I'm sure some of her classmates have probably identified as not actually who she really is. So I think that will be a good outcome of the series. But then we also are just going to learn more about Yodaka's master, who seems like he's a pretty he's a pretty intense and interesting dude. So happy to learn more about that. Definitely looking forward to where we go from here on out. Next, at number 4, we have One Piece. So, with One Piece, we learned a bit more about Emu's abilities. So, Luffy gave him the super duper punch, and while he was being punched, Emu sent off these little flamey boys to latch themselves onto Loki and Luffy. Um, and they are somehow linked with his ability to shoot off these like blades or flames or something. They are also bells, which I'm sure has some sort of significance of some kind. But this big old flame sword gets stabbed right through Loki, which is bad news. The rest of the Straw Hats are trying to do something about the big ice block, but it's not really ice. They don't really know what it is. Loki's hammer comes down, gives it a big old whack, which causes it to start to melt. So Shuri might appear. Luffy at the same time is trying to avoid the same thing happening with the little flame and the bell thing, and it seems like he has also activated his ability, which we will see later. And as you can see, he does get away here. And then the Thorn guy and Zoro are just mean mugging at each other, and then they start their fight. And then we spend too much time with Sanji just doing his thing because he can't fight ladies and blah blah blah. So he has to go fight the dude, which yeah, sure, makes sense. I guess. But they're dropping that maybe he's going to activate his the Conqueror's King hockey, which Zoro has it, Luffy has it, and so given that he's supposed to be one of the three big boys, he has to have it too. But Luffy in Joy Boy form appears, and he's not having fun right now, which I know he will probably be having fun soon. But that was I think interesting and important. But let's see what happens when we get the big old bad versus big old fun boy Luffy. Coming in at number 3, Cannon Master. I think that this series is really good. I I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We're only at chapter 3. I know we're early in the game, but I think I really, really like this series. So we get the conclusion of this Slayeth bout. And the Master here are able to take down this big beast by combining their abilities. So for him, he sort of creates a pathway using his Tempest ability, and then kind of shoots his laser thing through it, which are able to combine to destroy the Slaylith completely. And they are able to do it in such a way that they do not do any damage to the town in which they were trying to protect. And our master here is basically being super humble as well and saying, I don't really need a reward. I'm really content with the fact that I was able to protect all of this. And, it really, what this chapter showed to me was that this series is doing something a little different than what I expected. I expected it to be a little bit more like Reagan and Mob, and I thought that that was maybe where they were going with it. But I don't think that's where they're going with it at all. I think that there is just a natural difference between these two characters, and I think that they are both aware of each other's flaws and strengths, and that they are actually working together towards building up each other's goals and helping each other to succeed, and that this isn't like an emperor has no clothes situation. Can identify the things that his master doesn't really even recognize within himself, and his belief in his master is genuine and actually is backed up by the things that his master has done and the capabilities that he has. And this isn't it's just a different story. It's not one of like, a master who's like bumbling his way through and just trying to help the super overpowered character not, go to the dark side. It's not that at all. Maybe a little bit, but it's not really that at all. And that was just, it really hit me, and it hit me in this chapter in a way that I was like, you know what, this seems like it's awesome. Like, this seems like it could really be good for a really long time if it keeps on this way. And I really hope they do, because I think that they've built a really compelling and enticing world with a very unique design, and one that does not conform with a lot of what you see in fantasy, especially in like manga fantasy, you know, where pretty much the medieval European German aesthetic is like a dime a dozen. That is not what this is going for, and I think the enemies are also really cool designs. So I'm very interested to see how they will continue to develop the power system, how they'll continue to develop our main characters, how they will potentially introduce new characters, if they continue to introduce characters that are interesting and compelling, which I think to this point, all of the like notable characters, including like the old grizzled veteran, and then and the master, obviously have been compelling and interesting to continue to read about. Again, we're only chapter 3, so I, obviously anything can happen. It could go on to be like, hey, this is going to be a 10-pole manga of the magazine for years to come, or it just kind of fizzles out. Like, these things can happen. But as of right now, I think that number 3 ranking is perfectly justified and is deserved for what this series brought with this chapter. So extremely, extremely excited for what Canon Master has in store for us going forward. Coming in number 2, we have Akane Banashi, and we get the end of Kaisei's God of Death story, which ends on a very interesting note because, again, Kaisei's version of the God of Death is a very different version from Akane's version, in that his is focusing more on the personal. It is the art of the personal. It is not the art of like Rakugo taking command. It is imposing your personal story and will upon your audience, and that is very much what Kaisei is doing here, where he takes the story and he kind of adds this wrinkle on the inside of it of, you know there's one version of the story in which the God of Death just blows out the candle of the kid, where in this case it is actually taking the embers and lighting a new candle and saying like, hey, you don't even deserve death, the way that you've been acting. We get a little bit more of the relationship between Kaisei and Isho, which is interesting and nuanced. And the god of death is basically saying like, hey, you need to take time to live before you throw your life away. um and I thought that it brought together the story in a very cohesive manner. The boy is like, oh, okay, I can go through and live my life now. I don't need to take that candle with me, um that you gave me. But then the god of death is like, whoop, I'm just gonna blow out your candle. And then we get this nice little conclusion here. So ultimately, if I'm comparing the two of the stories with each other, I do believe that Akane won. I think that Kaisei Kaisei was playing for an audience of one here. He was playing for Isho. He was playing his story to speak specifically to things that Isho asked him directly and also asked of him. And I think that Kaisei was answering that question. But I think ultimately what that led to is a story that did not play as strongly as Akane's did. That goes for the audience within the narrative, but also just for me. Like, I personally found Akane's version much more compelling and much more interesting to read, and thus listen to. And I think that the culmination of it was just a much stronger version. It's always tough to go second in any situation. That's not to say that Kaisei didn't do a very stellar job. I think he did. Um, yeah, I just think Akane did better. So if I had a vote, which I don't, I would vote for Akane. Coming in at number one, we have Ichi the Witch, and Descaress is just the best. She is just so frustrated that she lost, because she lost. She lost the ping pong custody battle, but then Ichi reminds her, is like, hey, mentor is different than family, and here we're all about family. Just go watch a Fast and the Furious, buddy. Like, family's what's really important. So Descaress is just lording it over him, is like, oh yeah, it's totally fine. I'll do it because my family wants me to. And then the rest of the squad get to play ping pong themselves, which they have a this was really fun. It was just a funny sort of time. Money Gold comes out and is like, hey, I am the club captain. And you know what? What's the best way to negotiate is to negotiate over ping pong, and negotiate over ping pong is exactly what she does. She has a great game with the Magic Keeper leader. We see a little bit of the behind the scenes that they kind of are. They're holding some stuff back even from us, and we don't really know what that is. We don't know what their ultimate plan or goal is. We don't know why they're allowing this witch to live, and what keeping her alive is benefiting them, but I'm sure we will find that out in time. But Money Gold and the chairman of the Magic Keepers agree that they are going to work together to go after Fujimine because their interests align in this case. Uroro decides to be the rage baiter that he is, but his rage baiting has activated Ichi's self doubt. So it is super effective, and something that Fujimine said to him is clearly affecting him and is making him clearly question whether um, there is something wrong with him. So, you know, I think that will be interesting to figure out what's going on. I want to give Ichi a hug. Descaress is hilarious. I think that it is a chapter that very easily deserved first place this week. And that is it for my review. Thank you all for your patience. And for any of you that are even here watching this after the delay, I got, it just, yesterday was crazy. It was not going to work. And so I hope you don't mind it taking an extra day to do my review this week. Again, I think that there is a top tier that are doing very well. There's a middle tier that are doing all right, and with some floating up. And then I think at the bottom, Still not quite at like bad territory, but it is definitely getting more and more in the mediocre to lower end. So I am hoping that I'm going to hit a stretch where ranking that bottom chapter is just brutal. And anytime I pick one of these chapters to be last, it like physically hurts me. And that hasn't really been the case up to this point. Although I do wish that some of my favorites don't get down there, which they do end up sometimes. But anyway, that is it. I will also be working on my summer review. So I've been doing these like quarterly recaps, reviews of the past 3 months of chapters for all of these series. That is probably going to take me a while. I hope it doesn't take me too long. I hope it doesn't take too long. I hope I'm able to get it out in relatively short order and just give a sort of just sit back and take stock of what has happened over the past 3 months. But thank you all for watching. Hope to see you again in the next one.